talking about today, but if you are a store or a restaurant, these are things you really need to pay attention to as well, because this is your digital media presence, as well as your location. Making sure your maps are set up correctly and you have the information there if you're a restaurant for menus or for products. So these are all like important things to keep in mind as you're thinking about your overall digital presence. It isn't just Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you know, it's a whole mix of things. Another important thing to know is you have 8 seconds to get someone's attention because the digital world is moving so fast that they take 8 seconds. And if you compare this, a goldfish has a 9-second attention span. So a human attention span on digital media is less than a goldfish. Seriously, you have to grab your audience, and that's very, very key. And that's what we'll be talking about today. No matter what you do, whether it is your website, whether it is a brochure, whether it is your social media, whatever it is, there are 5 musts that Elise and I both say you have to do. First and foremost, focus on your client. That means knowing who your client is and understanding them, their motivations, their needs, and why they would buy you is key, because the client should be at the center of everything you do. Making sure you keep your branding consistent. So whether somebody's on your website or on your Instagram page or sees a piece of collateral from you, they know it's all the same company. That may seem very basic, but we've seen pieces that are all across the board and somebody doesn't know if it's a different company. Keeping the messaging simple. If you can't say, convey your message in about 5 words, maybe 10, it's too confusing. Then we need to dig in and think about it more, because they're not going to dig in for you. You need to present it to them in a way that is very easily understandable. Be engaging. A lot of people out there. So the more engaging you are, the more inviting you are to your customers, the more they will engage with you. And most foremost, and this is one of Eric's, I know, big things, is be authentic. So somebody can smell, or customers can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. If you aren't authentic in your brand, in your messaging, in your promises, they will know, and that will definitely harm you in the long run. So we're going to kind of go quickly over some websites, because everything you're doing will be pushing you back to your website. So it's important that you have this set up correctly. And again, we go back to the lack of attention span of human beings on digital media. It takes 5 milliseconds for someone to form an opinion about your website. So if they get there and they don't know what they do or why they need to contact you, or are intrigued, at least intrigued to learn more about you, then they're gone. And 88% of consumers say once they have a bad experience on a website, they're not going back. They're not going to waste their time, right? It's not their job to figure out if they should use you. A lot of things you can do to fix this. Simple navigation, so a friendly user experience. You don't need 8 things across the top that they click on. And if you can keep it to 4 or 5 and make them very self-explanatory, and so they can easily define themselves. Less words and more imagery. Now, I know that's counterintuitive to SEO, which we'll talk about, but you can do things like have a nice quick description of something and do a read more, which will open a bigger one, which will help your SEO. But really keep the text overall that people see on the page limited. The imagery is better, compelling imagery, pulling them in, infographics, they love it. So the other thing, you have to be responsive. So a site has to work not just on a computer, but on a phone as well. 92% of traffic comes in, believe it or not, through a mobile device. So if it's not responsive and it isn't working and they can't, get to what they need on a phone, you lose them again. Create a visual hierarchy. So there is a theory called a principle called the Gutenberg principle. And this discusses how naturally a person's eyes flow across the page. And the typical way is what they call a Z pattern. There's lots of patterns, but the typical one is a Z pattern, which I'll show you in the next screen. But it creates sort of a hierarchy where you put some of your key topics to make sure what you want the consumer to see, they're actually seeing. And it, as you can imagine, we all read left to right, so it goes left to right, and then down, again left, and again right, much like you would read a book. Search engine optimization. This is a presentation in itself. So we're gonna, my biggest thing is if you don't fully understand search engine optimization, it is something worth investing in and finding someone, because if you don't do it right, you can actually harm your company. So it's better to get advice and to get someone to help you set it up, or if you want it ongoing, and those are important things, because it can drive 1,000% more traffic than just hoping that your organic's going to work. And this isn't paid. This is just making sure you're using the keywords, the correct keywords within your industry, your competitive industry. You have them on the page. That this is also a lot of use of video, because Google prefers video, and making sure that specifically Google is looking at your site and gathering what they want. So when somebody's searching, you're coming up as most relevant. Most people don't go past the first page. So like I said, this is a presentation in itself. We're not going to touch a lot on this today, but if you look online, I know that the statewide SBDC, as well as Loudoun, we have presentations on this quite frequently. So take a look and sign up, because they are well worth it. And you can also schedule time with a coach. We have experts in this, and we can speak with you and give you advice. These are examples of the Z. So you can see this is what they're talking about. So the Gutenberg principle, it shows you your primary optical area and where your site tends to go. And so if you set things up in your messaging, this is how people, and you can ensure, and you can see how the J House has done it. Really, they're very clean, but they've made sure that their viewers are seeing exactly what they want them to see. Virgin Airlines is another good example of a very clean website. They have a lot of information that they need to convey, as you can imagine, for a travel site, but they've done it in a very clean, simple, user-friendly way, where they haven't thrown 15,000 things up on the screen. Somebody can get to what they want in a click, and it's just a good example of how you don't have to put everything in the world up there to engage people and compel them and still get them to use your site. Blog. Most people don't think of blog as social media, but it is, and it's very important, because blog is content that you're creating that can be used in many, many, many formats. And typically blogs are then promoted through social media. And they're also very, very important. As you can see, some of the points I have up here on the blog usage. So people who are blogging are 13 times more likely to see a positive ROI. And 77% of internet users actually use blogs to guide their decisions. So blogging is also huge in the B2B world. So if you are a B2B business, you almost have to have a blog. This is how you create what we call your thought leadership. And it's also helps with e-commerce, because when people are trying to decide on a product, on what to buy, they want to see, they want to hear the expertise behind this. It's also cheaper. And while this is all important to understand, it's also important to understand that if you don't have the blog, don't do it. While I say how important it is and how interesting it is, you really need to blog at least 2 times per month for it to be worthwhile, and not 2 300-word pieces. Typically, the ones that perform best are 1,500 words or more. And so instead of trying to create, 6 300-word blogs that'll just, to throw stuff out there, take the time to create 2. And sometimes what we even recommend if someone's starting a blog is to sort of get a back channel. So maybe take the time, don't start your blog, create maybe 6 of them. And then, launch one in the beginning of the month when you decide to launch your blog, and then the second one. And so you'll have 3 months already saved up. And then while you're posting those, you can be working on the next 3 months. It's a job. So, and while a lot of people do respond positively to blogs, again, if you don't have the time for it, and I'm going to say this again on all the channels, if you do not have the time to invest in it, it is better not to do it than to do it badly. And this is where we get into focusing on quality over quantity. Again, like I said, don't do the 6, focus on 2 good ones, right? The other thing that we'll bring up a lot, and we'll show you at the end of this, is a content calendar. So content calendars can make things much easier. It doesn't have to be every single day you're focusing on this. You can plan a calendar out for next month and start working on it this month. And when I say plan a calendar out, it can be a blog calendar and a social media calendar. You can do it either through a spreadsheet, or there's online tools, which we'll share with you. And making sure that it's aligning with, you know, what your revenue streams are, as well as what's going on in the industry. So if there's a specific day, so like the National Conservancy is an example we have later. So Earth Day, they have big promotions. So making sure you know what's going on in the calendar wise, or editorial calendars of large publications, and building it around that. Staying consistent, like I said, don't do it for 1 month and then not do it for 3. It's better just to not start. And then again, this is the content, your content, that you will share on social media, rather than, you know, reposting somebody else or, you know, creating things. This makes your social media posts that much more authentic, because they're from you and they're teaching you, teaching your visitors your thought leadership and what your expertise is and why they should trust you and why they should buy your product. Here are some examples of some good blogs. Some blogs exist independently as their own entity. Some are parts of websites, which is fine. And we've given examples of both. And I've sort of indicated in here why they are good. So you can see this first one, they have these simple categories that make it very easy for searching. Somebody can just click on something and go and see the blogs on that topic that they want. The next one has the same thing, but they've also used a little bit more compelling imagery versus, you know, that pulls people in with a descriptor. And the last one is the TED blog, which is associated with the TED Talk. And again, they haven't focused as much on imagery as they have descriptors. So they're focusing more, but it's still very clean. It's still categorized, and people can find what they need and dig in a little bit before they have to get into the full blog. So now we're going to start getting into the social media channels, and Facebook is first. Facebook, as you can imagine, is widely used. It commands the largest audience, but it's important to understand the age group of this audience as well as the breakdown of this audience. So it's 25 to 34 is this audience, and it's mostly male, believe it or not. And they do spend time. So as your business is determining what channels you want to be on, that's why it's important to understand who your customers are, who your buyer personas is what we call them. Where are they? Are they on Facebook, or are they on Instagram, or are they on Twitter, or are they on LinkedIn? Like, where do you need to do them? You don't have to be on every channel. You need to be on the channels where your customers are looking. So you may only need to have one social media channel if you decide. It's better to have one really strong profile than 5 really weak profiles. So because some of the things we're going to tell you in here in the best practices is to engage. So, you know, you need to even though it's maybe a business page, it still needs to have sort of a persona, its own personality. It needs to have compelling pictures. You should make it fun in a way, or at least engaging for your customers, asking them questions that pertain to them, whether it be polls, taking a poll that is important to your industry, or even delivering stats that prove why your product delivers what they need. But again, you need to create engagement, and frequency is key here. You need to post several times, I think about 2 times a day on Facebook, at least, to engage your customers. And the other important thing that we'll also say is, if you're setting this up, or even if you already have a presence, go look at what some of your successful competitors are doing not necessarily to copy them, but it's always good to understand the competitive environment. So go see what they're doing and what they're posting, and which one of their posts are engaging. And you can also use that to kind of help determine, what you may or may not need to do, right? You can also learn some of the things. I don't want to do that because that was horrible. And also look at analytics. So each month after you do posts, go and look what the Facebook analytics are saying. Which posts did your users engage with the most? Which ones lost your users, right? And because maybe we don't want to do those anymore. So take a look and learn. Like this is a process. This isn't something that you can do as an aside. It needs to be part of your strategy, and you need to invest the time and effort in it, no matter what it is. Again, this is an example that when you engage someone, whether it's asking a question, asking a poll, it can double your engagement with your users. That's huge. But it needs to also, don't just put a silly poll up, put something up that is pertinent to your industry. So if you are sell flowers, then maybe it's a question about what's the most popular flower in May or something that you already know the stats, but then they can try and guess, and then you give them the results, or something that engages them, or but it's still pertinent to what you're doing. These are examples. On the left are some pages that are examples of good things that people are doing from, getting excited here, from compelling industry, as well as changing things out frequently and having a very clear button where people can go from on HelloFresh, they can shop now. They have a large audience, so they are constantly updating. They are offering their recipes and recommendations. They're, but always here pinned at the top, allowing people to be like, oh, I really like this, I'm gonna go shop. Again, Airbnb, they have a ton of followers, but they also have here another book now. So while people are going through, they can always say, oh, okay, I'm gonna go book now. And those are important things, allowing people to engage. These are some posts that are very popular. The Dollar Shave Club, I'm sure everyone's heard of. They, again, have a lot of followers, but they're very fun. They're kind of funny. They do things tongue in cheek because that's their brand personality, right? And they convey it here. And they have a good time with their posts, and they are interested. So these are some good things. And then this is PF Chang's, and what they've done is what we'll talk about is relating their brand to other brands. So they might have local wineries that are in their thing, or national wineries, but they're promoting them. So they do that. This is called relating to other brands. They also share recipes. So they engage with their audiences while still staying true to the fact that they're a restaurant. So people are like, oh, this recipe looks amazing, but I don't want to make it tonight. I'm going to go to PF Chang's. So it's great. The next thing is Instagram. And I don't know, and you all may know this, but Instagram is actually owned by Facebook. So a lot of times in the beginning, if you feel like you need Instagram and Facebook, you can post on one and it will post to the other. This is a good way to get started, but really in the long run, it's important to have individual content both, because as you'll see in the demographics and usage, it's a little different. This is more female, the other is more male. This is about the same age range, but it's just a different entity. And people here, there are 33, is it 33? Hold on, where is this? I have this down. That are looking in, this gives you what they're looking for, their fashion, their food and drink, their music. So this one, and Lisa and I had a big debate actually when we were discussing about this, about good B2B sites. So we decided that if you're like an individual consultant selling to businesses, this might be good because you can do a personality. But Instagram and probably even Facebook is not something I would recommend to an IT consulting company trying to sell into the government, or an IT consulting company trying to sell to other businesses. You don't need these. Your audience isn't here. They're not as B2B. And but for B2C, for consumer-based things, absolutely, these are great places because people are coming here and having fun, and you can sell yourself in a much more fun way. But again, you need to make sure what you're selling is fitting in this age group, fitting in the gender. So it's important to understand these things. Some of the Instagram best practices, again, you can establish a business profile and make sure that it's engaging. I'm going to say this, you'll probably, I think if Eric's counting, I'm going to say engaging probably about 200 times. And make it easy to do business, like on the Facebook page where they have the book now and shop now, like make those buttons clear, because if people can't figure out how to buy from you, it doesn't matter how compelling you are. That's a problem. So use the stories, both on Instagram and Facebook. Both of them have those stories that you can post. They only last 24 hours, but they're really fun. And the live, there's Instagram Live and Facebook Live. You know, if you're a store and you got new product in, maybe you do an Instagram Live going through the new product and showing people what came in and saying, hey, you better come in before people take this. Or if you're a restaurant that's has a new dish on the menu, video the chef cooking it, right? And saying, come in and get yours. These are fun ways to engage with your audience and also, you know, let them see a different side of your business. Hashtags. Facebook uses hashtags, but they haven't adopted them quite as much as the Instagram world, and as you'll see, the Twitter world and the LinkedIn world. But hashtags at this point start to become very important. And what hashtags are key terms that relate to you and your business. So when I post something on LinkedIn for my business, I always post sort of strategic marketing, marketing consulting, small business. These are hashtags that I know no matter what I post. Now, if I'm posting about social media, I may be doing hashtag social media strategy or hashtag digital media or hashtag internet, because it pertains to what I'm talking about. Hashtags are key because people follow hashtags. So while they may not follow you, they will be following a hashtag and they will see your post under that hashtag, and then they might end up following you. This is a great way to pull in users that may not have even been able to find you, because it's a busy world. Again, contact calendars. Contact calendars we'll talk about later, but it makes it so this isn't so overwhelming. And I know right now as I'm going through all this, it may feel overwhelming. Don't worry, we'll get to the tools part soon. Again, look at your analytics, see what your competitors are doing, make sure you are adjusting based on what you're finding. Marketing is a lot about adjustment. You know, we put something out there. We talk a lot about this at the SBDC. We all have, you know, what we think might work, and then we have to go test it, right? You got to ask the question. We think what our customers want, but then you need to go find out, is that really what they want, right? And then you adjust based on what you learn. And it's the same thing in marketing. You adjust based on what you're doing. Maybe this post like blew it out of the water. Let's figure out how we can mimic that one. Maybe this one just fell on its face. Don't do those again. Don't spend the time. It didn't work. It might be your favorite. It didn't work. And again, call to action buttons like we've talked about. Learn more, watch more, shop now, book now, sign up, contact us, all those things. These are Instagram examples. Again, you will see on these everything from IKEA to a small farmer's market to a little burger house. They're fun, they're colorful, they're engaging. If you look at the IKEA, it's not necessarily showing all the things it's selling, it's showing how people are using the things they're selling. So it's a little bit different in that way, which makes it a little more compelling rather than just showing a dresser, right? Or showing a mirror or showing all the kitchen products. And then the great thing about this Freddy's Steak Burger is they have a lot of different categories that you can go into, and they've made it very clear as well as very fun for people to look into those and search so they can find what they need rather than having to scroll through the post. So these are just good examples of how you can make your Instagram business page useful to people following you. Twitter. So Twitter is largely male. It is huge. This is a lot of government as well, for the reason that a lot of government can't get on anything on other than Twitter. Well, now because of COVID, they can because they're at home. But if they're on site, typically other sites are closed down to them. And so Twitter has become a government go-to. But this is also a good B2B. But as you can see, there's, it's also good international as well, but there's a ton in the US. It's 25 to 49 and it's heavily male, and they spend a lot of time on Twitter. A lot of people, 33% of the users of Twitter are on there to follow brands and companies. So, and to 14 to strengthen their professional network. So it's huge. Twitter is also a good place to promote any of your blogging, because people are there to get news, but your blog can be seen as sort of industry expertise and news for the industry. Some of the best practices. This is the key to Twitter. Like if you don't have the time, don't do it, because it's 3 to 7 tweets a day, and not just, hi, how you doing? Like they need to be compelling and informative and useful to the customers. Otherwise, they're just going to go by. A good thing here too, as we've said before, is look at your competitors. What are your competitors doing? Not again to copy them, but to understand the industry and where you can fit in. And if your competitors are doing 10 a day, then you just doing 3 isn't really helpful. You need to be stay with the industry. Also, posting times are key. Typically during the workday is best. Facebook and Instagram and all those are 7 days a week or after hours or more fun times. This is business hours. This is business time, business hours, Monday through Friday, and that's important to know. Visual content on Twitter, it used to be all text, but now that it allows visual, videos are huge on Twitter. I can't even stress that enough. Videos are huge. Useful videos are huge on Twitter. If it's just something silly, then no. And hashtags is really where Twitter was really where hashtags started, and everybody adopted it. So again, hashtagging on Twitter is huge. You can look at some people and they may have 30 hashtags on their Twitter. It's great. And what that does is, again, like I said, people follow hashtags versus businesses or certain people. And that's how you can get audiences that may not know of you, but then they'll see your tweet and go, wow, that was really, insightful, or wow, and they'll start following you. Twitter is a lot about engagement. So it's a lot about, when you go, find your, what they call your industry leaders in Twitter, like who has the most followers, and follow them. Most likely, if you follow them, because they're trying to expand, they will end up following you. And so you can cross-pollinate the audiences, which is huge. And also when you're following them, they might have a tweet that is just huge or that you want to comment on. And retweeting is amazing. Retweeting is a great way because their audience sees it, right? So you retweet with tags or you reply to them because people will scroll through the replies. And it's very important and a great way to capture people who, like I keep saying, may not know about you. As always, make your profile inviting, and then say another way. Make sure all of your follow me on wherever you are, whether it's just Twitter or whether it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, wherever you are, make sure, because people will be there and then they can go find you on the social media and follow you. And it's just another way to grow your audience and expand it. So these are key things. And Twitter is an investment. It requires a lot of time. So again, make sure this is the right spot for you in your business. Make sure that this is where your customers are. Don't do it if, you're not sure. Wait and dig a little deeper, figure out, because it's worth to start it and stop it. So again, I've kind of reviewed some of these, but here's a little chart on the best practices. Following the industry leaders. is huge. Optimizing your page or your bio, making sure. The other thing on Twitter that you need to have your business done is it needs to be have Twitter recognize it. You'll see HubSpot here, that it's been verified a real business. Twitter does have a lot of bots on it. Well, I'm sure you're not surprised. Twitter has a lot of bots on it. And so you can go when you set up a business page and ask Twitter to verify you. And once you have this verification, then followers will know that you truly are a business and you're not a bot. And it makes it that much more likely that they'll trust you. Join chat, like I said, that's the engaging with replies or retweeting, posting frequently, and following, so and engaging. So I've shown you a little bit about HubSpot. So they've done things like pin a tweet, something they want to make sure everyone sees. And no matter how old this post is, that you can unpin it, so after 6 months, you might take it down. But they wanted everyone to know that there are best places to work. They also made it very easy to get to their website. And they did a very clean descriptor. This is a smaller marketing consultant that I pulled in. And again, you can see she's using a lot of hashtags in her tweets. And she's also using a very clear descriptor with hashtags, which is huge as well. And then it's in a very easy way to get to her site. So you don't have to be a big giant HubSpot to have a really good, compelling page. And this, from the beginning, marketing, you know what she is, right? So it's very clear. Pinterest. So Pinterest is interesting. While, again, understanding your audience, this is mostly female, and this is, in my opinion, mostly consumer-based. This is an interesting place to be because it's not quite as busy as the others. So depending upon what kind of business you have, maybe if you're selling art, or even if you're selling clothes, Pinterest could be a good place because a lot of people are on there. If you cut hair, if this is a lot more the services industry. I believe I wouldn't put a B2B here, but you can see a lot of things, a lot of these graphics about people using Pinterest. And like we said, it's not quite as crowded, which makes it nice, right? So you can stand out a little bit more on Pinterest in doing it well. So some of the best practices of Pinterest is, again, they do have business accounts. Making sure Pinterest has categories, so make sure you're choosing the right categories for your business so people are finding you when they go on and they go, oh, I want to look in health, or I want to look in clothing or beauty, or I want, making sure that you're coming up in those categories. Make your imagery unique and use videos here as well. Videos on Pinterest are huge. Videos everywhere draw people in. Keywords are huge here. They call them keywords versus, they have hashtags too, but making sure your keywords relate to you really well. Adding the hashtags, Pinterest has started using these as well. Cross-selling, so Pinterest, since it's very visual, it's easy to cross-use it onto other social media platforms. And engage with other accounts. This is big. We've talked about this before. You saw this on Facebook, making your brand relatable to other brands. And again, like everything else, look at your results. So at the end of the month, go into the analytics for Pinterest and see what have people been engaging with? What have they not been engaging with? Look at your competitors, what's worked for them, what's not worked for them. Where are you winning? Where are they winning? And use that to adjust your strategy. Here are some examples. The big thing about Pinterest really is being colorful and engaging content. I mean, even the Wall Street Journal is on Pinterest, right? It doesn't have a lot of followers, but it is engaging. The Today Show is on Pinterest. It has a lot of followers, but again, it's very engaging. People go to find things, they find recipes, they find, things they can do, organic health. This is, again, why I would say this is more of a services. Whole Foods makes it great because you can, they have an easy button for like, well, let me order this and get delivery. That's great, if you can do things like that. So these are some good examples of some Pinterest. LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, in my humble opinion, is very big for business to business. So I know Facebook comes out saying they're stealing the business to business world. I'm not seeing it happening, and I'm in this every day. In my opinion, LinkedIn and Twitter are the two big business to business locations. And when I say business to business, it's, selling IT services or selling an IT product. You can do it on Instagram, but I think those are typically smaller businesses selling more their personality and themselves versus a larger or consulting, or you're selling services, IT services, or you're selling a software. This is where you need to be. And the good thing, and you'll see a lot of your people are here. It's split very evenly between male and female. People go here for professional services. People look for jobs here. People expand their network, professional network here. And because of that, companies do very well here because this is where people come to conduct business. And, 92% of the marketers, and I'm in that 92%, confirm that most of their leads come from LinkedIn. And a lot of the social media traffic coming to B2B sites is from LinkedIn. Here are some of the best practices. Again, make sure you have a good profile. LinkedIn, because it is a professional network, is very educational in nature. It is where people sort of develop their thought leadership. So this is a lot of places that you would share your blog, or you can even post articles directly to LinkedIn and share them there. So that's another thing that you can do, and share them across LinkedIn, which again, it's great at establishing. You need to optimize your page for search, much like a web page, and they make it very intuitive. LinkedIn, when you walk through, actually makes it very simple for setting up a business page. But they have this new thing they've just started where if you fully understand your buyer personas, which is great, and that's important to know, you can set up what we call a showcase page. So those people that you're trying to attract directly will get shown that page that speaks directly to them. But that again goes back to, you need to make sure you understand your customers and their personas, and ensuring that you're speaking to them in a way that will get them to buy. Use LinkedIn Live. Everybody uses live stuff, but if you have a company presentation, if your company is doing something, utilize it. It's huge. Visuals even on LinkedIn are huge. Videos and engaging imagery works on LinkedIn as well, because again, someone's more likely to look at a picture and read a quick stat versus this whole thing of text. It's human nature. Just like everything else, be consistent. And again, this is another business thing. So it's a Monday through Friday sort of posting. You're not going to really do a lot on a Saturday or Sunday unless you have a big event, and you can do that, but be prepared to, make sure it's shareable after the big event. And the other thing about LinkedIn with your company page is make sure you have your employees engaged. So make sure that they are following the company, and when a post comes out, they're resharing it, right? Or even the company is following an employee and they might post something and the company's resharing theirs. But make sure that you're doing this because it only expands the audience and it helps both of you. So getting employees involved across all social media, but especially LinkedIn, is really crucial. And nurture your connections. So again, if this is the engage, make sure if they're responding to you, if it makes back, follow them, right? Connect with them and, talk to their post if it makes sense to you. These are all key things to do on LinkedIn. Here are some good examples. Deloitte is a great page. It has a lot of videos and event announcements as well as company news, and they do a lot of thought leadership, which is huge, and sharing it. So HP is another example. They do, as you imagine, HP has a lot of different categories that they're in. So they have a wide range of information that they do, but they make sure it's not confusing and it's still engaging. They also have several pages over here that you'll see, and they show them. So they try and make it very clean for people to use. The Nature Conservancy is something I had mentioned earlier. They have a thought leadership aspect to this, but they also use, luckily, they have incredible imagery they can use. I mean, Nature Conservancy. So they use very powerful imagery to compel people. They also can, you can get to the website very clearly. They're very clearly set up here. LinkedIn makes this easy to do. And they have a lot of blogs and content that they post on LinkedIn. I'm going to quickly go over a couple others that we don't have a lot of time to go in, because in my opinion, they can be utilized very well. But again, if you don't have a ton of time or a ton of resources to put into social media, these are sort of nice to have, right? They're not must. TikTok, as everyone knows, because of COVID, has absolutely exploded in its usage, and the audience is huge. Obviously, it's younger, again, but I'm sure you've seen Old Navy is using TikTok, right, for selling, which is great. But Old Navy has a giant marketing budget and lots of people doing it. So unless, again, you have time to do this, if this is your audience and you have the time, great. But if it's sort of on the outskirts of your audience or a small sliver of your audience and you really don't have the resources to do it, don't start. That's our thing. Snapchat, again, another one, young, very young. So it depends on your audience. Believers or not, and obviously female. And again, it can be used. There's a lot of people using Snapchat, but you need to make sure you have the resources to do it. And you need to make sure this is the right place for your audience is, that this is who you're selling to. And then Snapchat could be a good resource for you. YouTube. Now, YouTube, you can set up a channel because it's a great place to post your videos and share across the other channels. But YouTube also, if this is your audience, because again, this is very young, can also be a good place to have a channel and engage. So, I mean, 72% of all male and female internet users are on YouTube. But again, it skews very young. But the good thing about YouTube is it can still just be a channel where you post your things and share them across the other social media places you want them to be. So that's a good way to utilize it. E-commerce. E-commerce, again, is a whole other presentation, a whole other conversation, a whole other thing that we can do, but I'm going to try and get through this quickly. As you can see with our hockey stick chart, during COVID, more than 150 million new customers entered the e-commerce world. People who had never bought online before bought online because they weren't going to leave their house. And now that they've bought online, they're going to keep buying online. Some people may never go to the grocery store again, believe it or not. So there's a lot of new customers out there ready to use e-commerce, more trusting of e-commerce. But that means a lot of other people are entering the e-commerce world, right? So everybody's trying to sell online. It's important to understand your customer's journey, and it's important to make it easy for them. So it's important, again, this goes back to understanding your customer. And we're assuming here you have that down. If you don't, that's fine. Set up a meeting. We can help you work it through it. There's also that, like I said, the presentation by Sabot on Thursday that talks about the VPD and gets into customers. But, if you are going to do e-commerce, make sure that, it's very straightforward. It's very easy to use. It's easy to find the product, and it's easy and trustworthy for them to check out, right? Use big imagery, easy navigation. This kind of goes back to the website of the friendly user experience. Create an urgency for them to buy. This is also where reviews can help, blogging can help, videos can help. But again, just make sure you have the time to do it well. Like some people just stick a checkout on their site, but that doesn't mean you have e-commerce. Like you need to make sure people know to buy, want to buy, etc. You need to write informative information, but it can't be lengthy because it goes back to they're not going to read it. It needs to be short and sweet, but descriptive, and help them do related items. So like if somebody's buying a sweater, pick the scarf that might go with it, or the earrings, or, you know, you might be, it's Amazon is a great example, as we all know. And I'll go into this. So in Shopify, one of the quotes they're saying is, businesses are injecting life into their marketplace, product pages, and building relationships across other channels through customer services, personalization, and community. So e-commerce, as I said, is more than just putting a checkout on your site. I mean, it's creating a community, it's creating an experience, and it's creating something that compels them to purchase from you. So there's a lot of options out there. And these options will depend on what your website's built on, how you want to sell, what you want to sell. So you can use, you know, if you have your own site, it can be Shopify or BigCommerce or Weebly or WooCommerce, which is highly used in WordPress. Or if you're building a site, Squarespace and Wix, you build your site in there, and then they offer e-commerce through theirs, as well as Magento. I don't know Magento as well. That's the least thing. In Spanish, she'll explain it Wednesday. Sorry. But e-commerce, there's a lot of options. So again, we actually can talk with you more about this. We are limited in time here. I think I'm about to hit an hour. So these are good examples of e-commerce. As you can tell, Amazon has probably a million things you want to buy, but they've made their site so clean. And again, the Dollar Shave is another fun site, and they've made it very straightforward for buying. There's a lot of things we didn't cover today that we would need 3 more presentations for, as you can imagine. So, you know, we tried to cover as much as we could and get in depth as we could. So we hope we were helpful. And, you know, when you're doing your social media, as we said before, make sure you're telling a story, know your customer, know your customer, know your customer, you know, make sure you are updating, don't get stale, use pictures, use videos, share content frequently. And as we said, even if you have e-commerce, social media is still important. 75% of online shoppers use social media. Here are some of the tools, and Eric will be sharing all of this when we post this again, but when we talk about a content calendar, you can use a spreadsheet, like a monthly spreadsheet, and really plan it out. And then every Sunday you create everything. Or there's things online called Content Cal. And when you're creating content to be visual, both Canva is a great tool, and it's free. You can buy a professional one, but you can also use it for free for creating really colorful, engaging posts. And Animoto is great for producing short videos with just static pictures and text. And it can be a great way to do some videos for yourself when you're getting started and building. For content posting, you can either, if you have more than one place, there's a lot of different options. I tend for smaller businesses to move to Buffer because it's the least expensive right now, and it's a very good product. I believe it also has a content calendar in it. So that's a good place that you can go. And Hootsuite is great. Hootsuite's been around since about the beginning. It's just a little bit more expensive. It's raised throughout the years, but it's still wonderful when you're posting across platforms. Again, content calendar, I think I've stressed this throughout, so I'm not going to touch on it too much. Just it's important, and it can make your life easy. If you do this and you set it up, and like we said, make this a job, and you build your content calendar out for next month, take 2 days to put everything together, put it into your Buffer or whatever you're going to use, schedule it all, and you can set it and do it. Then all you have to do is, if you're on, follow Twitter and see if there's anything that you want to retweet or engage with or comment on. It doesn't have to be you posting every day per se. And then that's it. I did it in an hour, and I'm so sorry it was long, but as you can tell, there's a lot of information. So I'll try and answer questions as quickly as I can.
All right. So we do have a couple of questions, and then before we wrap up, and I think the first question that popped in was pretty good. So the question was, why is blogging sporadically worse than not at all?
Blogging sporadically is worse than not at all because you don't build a consistency. The thing with blogging is, if you're going to get people to follow you as a blogger, but they have nothing to follow, nothing consistent to follow, they'll start unfollowing you. So that you won't become one of their go-tos. You won't become one of their trusted folks. And all of this and all of the social media, consistency and frequency is key. Because if you're seen as sporadic, then, I mean, you know this in anything that you would use. If you become seen as, if you're buying from a product and they're there and then they're not there and then they're there and then they're not there, they don't seem very trustworthy. It's like, what are they doing? Are they too busy? Are they too busy to handle the business? Are they too busy to handle me? Are they, so that's why you need to make it seem seamless. And it just really is much better. And, if you can only do one, but you make it a really good one, and I mean 2,500 plus words, that's really compelling and interesting and something that you can, take apart and use other places, and somebody's going to want to read 2,500 words, great. But really, we tend to recommend around 1,500 and sharing it. It's just a better way. It's the better practice. I hope I answered that.
Excellent. And then last question before we pop out, and I don't know how you're going to do this one justice, but I have a large network on LinkedIn, but don't have many people following the company. What's a good strategy to increase company followers? Maybe some pointers on how to think through that problem would be useful.
Well, one of the good things to do is start posting on the company and sharing through your profile, so that people see you're sharing the company. So your followers then see the company. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. Stop necessarily sharing directly from your profile and share from the company. And then you, as the individual, will pick up the company post and share it and comment on it even. So that is a great way, an easy way to go through. And since we don't have much time, we can schedule a meeting and talk about this more, but that's a quick and easy way.
Excellent. So thank you, everybody. We'll go ahead and wrap it up there so we can go get ready for the panel discussion that's starting at 11:30.